Hello and welcome to ThePapare.com. Today we have a very special guest with just a few days to go for the start of the Lanka Premier League. We have a West Indies player, West Indies commentator now, who's here in Sri Lanka covering the Lanka Premier League. Daren Ganga is here with us, and we have another West Indies lookalike, but he's not West Indian. He's a Sri Lankan. Rex Clementine with us, a senior cricket journalist. Welcome, gentlemen. First of all, Darren, welcome to Sri Lanka. How's it to be back in Sri Lanka? How's Sri Lanka treating you so far?
Well, first of all, good day to you and to all the viewers and listeners, and to Rex as well. It's always a pleasure, a great privilege for me to be back in Sri Lanka. Such a great cricketing nation, I would say, a country with a very big personality, and one that I compared very closely to my home in Trinidad because of the landscape, the people, the hospitality. I feel very much welcomed here. So I'm really happy to be back here to be a part of the Lanka Premier League, and I hope that we can all be successful in seeing a champion being crowned for this inaugural tournament.
Darren, thank you so much for agreeing to come on show with us at such short notice. Really appreciate you coming forward. I'd like to just ask you on. We'd like to ask you about quite a few players, but in particular, you'd be able to shed light more than anyone else about the players who come from West Indies. You could, brief us about a few of them.
Sure. I must say that it's very different times for us in the cricketing world, as you'd appreciate with the pandemic. Um, we started cricket and competitive cricket with the West Indies team playing against England. And then what happened in the Caribbean, the Caribbean Premier League was hosted in Trinidad and Tobago, of which I was a part of, and then I proceeded to the IPL. So I've had a chance to see quite a few of the West Indian players, and I think the most prominent of them all participating in this tournament is Andre Russell, one of the best T20 players going around. He's defined himself being a part of the West Indies successful T20 team that won the ICC T20 tournament in 2012 and in 2016. He's the ideal T20 player, and to have a guy like Andre Russell grace the inaugural Lanka Premier League, I think that to me is exceptional. The entertainment will be royal, and he's also flanked by a few West Indian players who I understand will be here. Johnson Charles, a right-handed batsman who comes from St. Lucia, who's been a part of the Barbados Tridents franchise team in the CPL, who would have been a part of the West Indies' successful T20 squad. So he's a top-order batsman with quite a bit of play and power, loves to play the ball square of the wicket. He's also here. So too, I understand Lendl Simmons and Chadwick Walton, two other players, of prominence in the Caribbean and who have done well in T20 cricket and who will continue to extend the West Indian brand in this tournament.
Darren, just tell us about the fact that West Indies are still struggling a little bit in Test cricket, and they are not the force that they used to be in one-day cricket. But some or other in T20 cricket, you guys have done absolutely well. You won a couple of championships. You've been always competitive and one of the strong forces in the game. Why is that? West Indies seem to be doing well in this particular game, particular format than the other two formats.
Well, let me just give you a little bit of context to it. I played in the first T20 international match that the West Indies played in 2006, and that was against New Zealand when that game went to a bowl-off back then. It wasn't a super over in those times, but I can tell you organically, T20 cricket has grown in the Caribbean from the days of the Sir Alan Stanford tournament. I don't know if you could recall that, but it was a T20 tournament that came into being around 2006 in the Caribbean, where domestic teams in the Caribbean had a chance to play this format of the game. And I would have successfully led a Trinidad and Tobago team to winning that championship in 2009. And we went on to play the Champions League. And so too, Guyana did that as a franchise team in the Caribbean. So we and I say we as West Indians, a lot of the players would have had the opportunity to play T20 cricket before the advent of the IPL, before T20 cricket really took the international cricketing arena by storm. And because of that first mover advantage, I would say a lot of West Indian cricketers became more prominent in this version of the game, and they became more, I would say, more proficient. You think about Karen Pollard, who was exposed during the Sal and Stanford tournament, and many of the T20 stars that you see today, they would have been groomed in that era and over the years played a lot of T20 cricket. So if you look at a guy like Karen Pollard or even a Chris Gayle, they would have played close to a decade and a half of T20 cricket if you look at them now. So that in itself is a great advantage to have. I think the style of play from the West Indies is more suited towards the shortest format of the game. You look at our West Indian cricketers, they're very instinctive type players with a lot of power. If you look at the batsmen, they're natural boundary hitters. So it suits T20 cricket, and that is where the West Indian teams in T20 cricket have dominated because they have a high percentage of boundary hitting when they bat. You look at many of their players, they are all rounders, so they can bat, bowl, field, as we say today, they are 3D cricketers. And it gives a captain a great advantage to have players who are so versatile. So those are the things to me that have made West Indies teams so competitive in T20 cricket. And you match the West Indian athleticism with that, you have a successful product there in terms of a T20 cricketer.
Darren, now as a commentator, looking forward for this LPL tournament, who are the players from the Sri Lankan setup, the current Sri Lankan setup, who you will be looking up to during this tournament?
Well, first I'd say there are the usual suspects and the guys who continue to lead Sri Lankan cricket in white ball. Over the years, you think about a guy like Angelo Matthews, who's dominated across format for Sri Lanka, who has really sort of carried on the battle of that whole era of Sri Lankan cricket dominance. You think about that era from that 1996 World Cup. And I can tell you, when I was growing up, I looked at the Sri Lankan team and was inspired by this Sri Lankan team, by the captain Arjuna Ranatunga. And I played against many of the players who would have played in that World Cup final against Australia. So Sanat Jayasuriya, uh, Mullitaran, all these guys would have played in that final. Chaminda Vas, they would have played there. Kumar Dharmasena. All these guys are guys who I would have looked at on television. Then eventually, when we toured here, I think it was in 2001, 2002, we would have played against these said players. So you have a rich history in Sri Lankan cricket that has transcended. And you look at the era of the Kumar Sangakkara, of the Mahela Jayawardena, those are the guys who would have taken Sri Lankan cricket forward. So to this current era, Angelo Matthews to me is someone that has extended that dominance in Sri Lankan cricket. And you talk about Angelo Matthews in a world stage, and everyone knows him. So for him to be the captain of the Colombo franchise, I think that's a great asset. When you look at Kusal Pereira, who's also played a lot of T20 cricket all around the globe, he has actually defined himself as a T20 player. I think it's Tisara Pereira, if I didn't say it right. An all-rounder of repute. He would have played in the CPL. Many of these players who would have played across formats as well are also there. You think of Dinesh Chandimal as a top-class batsman who's captained the Test team. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they have taken Sri Lankan T20 cricket forward. But for me, the most important thing is obviously to see the exposure for the young Sri Lankan talent. When I look at all the teams and I look at all the players, I see a lot of 21, 22-year-old cricketers there. Cricketers who the cricketing world might not have seen before. And if I can draw a parallel to what transpired in the Caribbean, when we had this Stanford tournament back in the mid 2000s, it allowed for the exposure of a lot of our young West Indian cricketers who might not have had the opportunity to play T20 cricket at such a high level. Aaron Pollard was one such player who was exposed in that Stanford tournament. And look where he is now. So I see this tournament as a great investment in Sri Lankan talent. And as much as it will polish the established players in the Sri Lankan circuit, I think what is even most significant about this tournament, it will expose a lot of the talented cricketers in Sri Lanka and the young ones as well, and give them a stepping stone for them becoming very successful cricketers in the past, in the future, and cricketers who will take Sri Lankan cricket forward.
Darren, you spoke about Andrew Russell. Let me just ask you something. I remember this you. It was in Gaul exactly 10 years ago. This was the game where Chris Gayle made 333 runs. He started off his career as a fast bowler. He shared the new ball with Darren Sammy. I mean, 10 years on, he's become one of the most feared T20 cricketers and in very high demand too. How did this transformation happen?
Well, what I can say is Andre has always been a very exciting cricketer. I remember my time playing against him when he just started playing first class cricket. He was a very passionate cricketer, played with aggression in all departments of the game. If he was bowling, he always wanted to get you out, and he was aggressive with the use of his short ball. So he always believed in himself and his ability. And to me, attitude is something that you can groom, and it's really the driving force behind a cricketer becoming and fulfilling, becoming a great cricketer and fulfilling his or her talent. So he always had that as a young cricketer. And what he has done over the years is he's polished his talent. He's been able to groom himself with his batting skills. When he just started, he didn't really get much of an opportunity to bat high up the order. Now he's getting a chance to play a role with the bat, and he's embraced that. His ability to hit the ball out the ground and his clean hitting has been, a welcome asset in T20 cricket. And when you put his bowling with his batting and his ability to score so quickly, with his ability to field, you think you have the ideal package there. So it's just a matter of him trying to get the best out of his talent, and he's worked hard on his game. Make no bones about it. He had that 1 year ban when he didn't disclose his whereabouts, and he had to pay the price for it. And I think that 1 year away from the game did make him more hungry as a player. And we are seeing what that effort into his game is producing excellent performances, and he is an in demand cricketer in the T20 format.
When you spoke about Sri Lankan cricket favorites growing up, I can tell you that for lots and lots of us, Sri Lankans, we simply loved the way you guys dominated the game. I mean, from Richards to Lloyds to Malcolm Marshalls, you name it, and they are just all heroes of Sri Lankan fans. And of course, I mean, you'd find that conditions and the surroundings quite similar to what you guys find back in home in Trinidad or Guyana or Jamaica. So lovely to have you. And one of the guys that we are going to miss in this tournament is obviously Chris Gayle, your batting partner. Uh, you
Yes,
would have.
he's supposed to be here. I read about it early on. I did see him in the IPL, and I was anticipating him coming to the tournament. And unfortunately, we understand that he was carrying an injury, and he wasn't able to make it eventually.
Yes, Dan, you guys are almost a similar age as well. I mean, we see Chris Gayle as someone, I mean, very easygoing when we look at his exterior and just absolutely cool about most things. But tell us, as his batting partner, I mean, what does he sort of do to be this effective? How hard does he work at his game? And you can just shed some light about himself.
Well, Chris and I, we've shared a great relationship as cricketers. We started at the under 19 level, would have played at the under 19 World Cup in South Africa way back in 1998. And then we continued our journey playing for respective first class teams. He would have played for Jamaica, I would have played for Trinidad and Tobago. And our opening sort of salvo was in that under 19 World Cup when we started to partner each other at the top of the innings for the West Indies. And that really led us to doing it again at the A-team level and eventually across formats for the West Indies. What I can say about Chris is he's got a very relaxed demeanor, very easygoing personality. Even now, more so, if you look at him on the field, he seems to be, very laissez-faire in his approach and having a great time. And there's a lesson to be learned from that. I think when you look at Chris Gayle, he has that deep sense of confidence in his ability. That's why he's allowed to free himself in terms of how he behaves. You look at his record as a player, and there's nothing to question there in terms of his quality as a batsman, and that's across format. You look at his two triple centuries in Test match cricket. Very few persons are able to achieve such great heights, and he's done it as an opening batsman, which is not easy in the longest format of the game. So whilst he's dominated and played over 100 Test matches, he's also dominated from a West Indian standpoint in ODI cricket. He has the most ODI centuries by any West Indian ever, and he is in the last series against Ireland. He went past Brian Lara for the most aggregate runs in ODI cricket by a West Indian. So that alone shows his dominance with the bat in ODI cricket. And if you want to then compare and to assess what he's done in T20 cricket, well, to me, he's the undisputed king of T20 batting. 20 odd T20 centuries, highest individual score of 175 achieved in the IPL. And he is, just an entertainer, somebody that could add value to any team in any format. Yes, he's getting a little bit old, but a true entertainer, somebody with an immense amount of natural talent, but he's worked really hard. And let me make no bones about it. I've been with him throughout a major part of his journey, and he's worked as hard as anybody else to achieve what he's achieved as a batsman and the success that he's achieved collectively with the teams that he's played.
Darren, now you've said that you've been a part of the CPL, then the IPL, and now the LPL. Creating all these bio bubbles is not an easy thing, and it takes a toll on the players. And you being a commentator, I'm sure it's not easy. So, what's your take on this whole the new norm in cricket?
Well, I guess, we don't have a choice, so to speak. I think what's most important is the safety of everyone involved. And I think from the very first time such a biosecure bubble was set up, it allowed the rest of the cricketing world to see and to take an example from what was done in that West Indies England series. Thankfully, I was very close to what transpired on that occasion and what transpired even in the CPL. So I've had an intimate understanding of the biosecure bubbles in those two instances, and being a part of it has allowed me to adapt as a person. Yes, it's not the ideal situation when you've got to confine yourself, socially distance, self-isolate, quarantine yourself within a certain physical jurisdiction. It's a very difficult and challenging proposition for anyone. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But having said that, when you look at the benefits to be had in these pandemic times, when you see competitive cricket on the field and you have millions of persons across the globe being able to watch competitive cricket, to be entertained, to use the cricket that is produced and broadcasted as a respite for the challenges of COVID-19, I think you feel very proud that you've made that sacrifice being in a biosecure bubble. And credit must go to the players as well. All the players who have had to change what would have been maybe a different routine that they would have been accustomed to before competing and playing. They've just adapted, and they've gone about the business of being professional cricketers. So all credit to the players, to the officials, to the administrators across the globe for making the necessary sacrifices. Yes, it's difficult individually for everyone involved, but it's also very expensive to do and to set up these types of biosecure bubbles. So I guess it's a win-win situation. It's maybe a shining light in this global pandemic. And I give credit to everyone who has made this possible. And I'm playing my part to making it overall a successful venture here in the LPL.
Darren, one of the series that Sri Lankans still talk about is West Indies tour to Sri Lanka in 2001. I mean, you guys lost all 3 Test matches, but then there was this Brian Lara, 688 runs in 3 Test matches. Talk us about that series.
Well, I remember it fondly. Yes, the results didn't go our way, but it was such a memorable tour for all of us touring back in 2001. It was, you would say, one of your greatest Sri Lankan teams we were up against. You think about a team with the likes of Marvan Atapattu, Sanat Jayasuriya, Mutia Muralidharan, Chaminda Vas, and then you have Sangakkara, Mahela Jayawardena, just to name a few of the guys who did stand out in that series and who would have gone on to do very well for Sri Lankan cricket. Yeah, we knew that we were always going to be up against it, playing Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka. Um, but we knew that we had the sort of substance to compete and to do well. Yes, the results didn't go our way, but Brian really put his hand up from a batting point of view. I think his ability to lift his game, to challenge himself against Murli was an exceptional effort on his part. We all talk about that fondly now, with myself, Brian, and all the other players who played in that series. Just the sheer skill in how he was able to counter the great amount of spin extracted by Murli, his consistency, the attack in terms of the field placing by Sri Lanka. They were always very attacking when he was bowling. And, from a batting point of view, we had to get past that new ball with Chaminda Vas, who was so experienced as a left arm seamer, who was so accurate, who bet your bottom dollar in his first spell would have sort of taken 2 wickets on the go. I remember Chris Gayle having a horrible time in that series, opening the baton alongside me. So it just shows the significance, the class of Brian's effort in that tour. I think at that time it was the most number of aggregate runs scored in a 3-match series. So for him to achieve that record in the circumstances that we were in, having lost all 3 matches, was Herculean, so to speak. And he continues to be viewed as one of the greatest players and batsmen to have played the game. I was very fortunate to be in that series, to witness it firsthand. I know we played a one-day series thereafter, and I was batting with Brian when he dislocated his elbow. I don't know if you recall that. It was up in Kandy. I called for a run, and then Brian trying to dive to get into his crease, his bat got jarred with Marvan Atapattu, and he injured his elbow. So a very eventful tour, but great memories, and those memories we will cherish forever.
More than anyone, Daren, you would have a lot to do with Brian. He's from Trinidad as well, like you. So when you walked into that Trinidad and Tobago team, what kind of influence was senior professional?
Well, I've had a long history with Brian. When I made my first class debut, he was the captain of the Trinidad and Tobago team, and he was someone that took me under his wings and sort of taught me the game from a very, very tender age. So I've shared that relationship with him from way back in the 1990s, and that relationship grew from one at a first class level to an international level. He was my captain when I was first selected for the West Indies team to tour South Africa in 1998. So I've had a chance to see his efforts on the field, many of his records that he broke. I didn't see the record that he broke the first time when he got to that 375, when he broke the highest individual score by a test batsman in Antigua. But I was able to see when he broke it the second time around. In fact, I always joke with him and said that I'm wholly responsible for him breaking that record and scoring 400 in Antigua in 2004, I think it was. And I told him the reason why is because I got out and then he came to bat to start that inning. So it's a great experience for a player to be a part of teams when those significant moments in the game have taken place. And for me, I've seen many of those moments when Brian has given his very best. His 213 against Australia in Sabina Park in 1999 is something that I also witnessed. That 400 against England, the series against Sri Lanka when he scored all those runs. I was part and parcel of that. And I've seen him excel, scored lots of runs, lots of centuries, led our West Indian team. And the funny thing is, over time and coming later into our relationship, I became the captain of Trinidad and Tobago, and he had to play under me. So that was a unique sort of relationship that we had, where he was the international captain and I was his first class captain. And that just grew into what we now have as a great friendship. We enjoy that off the field, and his legacy and his feats on the field of play will always be talked about in around this great game of cricket.
Thank you very much, Darren, for joining with us today with ThePapare.com. It was lovely to hear from you all these tales with the West Indies cricket, and we hope you will have a safe stay in Sri Lanka and will enjoy the exciting cricket ahead. And we'll hopefully talk soon, Brett.
Much appreciated, Dan. Really lovely to hear all those comments. Enjoy Amandata. Have a good stay in Sri Lanka and take care of yourself.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Rex. And that's it from thepapare.com as we speak to Daren Ganga, one of the commentators who are here for the Lanka Premier League. So stay tuned to thepapare.com as we bring you all the updates, news, and everything related to this much anticipated Lanka Premier League, the LPL for Sri Lanka.
Eka eka rasayen ote diva pinasai Loku body sama kema trend eka mekai Popia na trileke nalave na trileke Rasayai my cola Oh oh my orange Oh oh my lemon Oh oh my ginger Rasayai my cola